Thinking of heading to the south of France this summer? Well, you'd be advised to look at more than just the weather forecast.
Be careful, jellyfish!
On this week's programme, we join the Jellyfish Patrol, trying to take the sting out of summer in France. We head to Tasmania to take a walk on the wild side. And
later on the Fast Track Travel Clinic, if your planned journey by Airbus becomes a trip on an ordinary bus, what are your rights? Plus, my prescription for a trans-European rail adventure.
And welcome to Fast Track. I'm Fiona Foster. Thank you for joining us. Now, this weekend sees the start of the long summer holidays for many school children across Europe, which means that soon the airports will be filling up and traffic will be slowing to a snail's pace as many families head off on their summer holidays. Traditionally, many of those families go to the south of France, famous for its golden beaches, but also now becoming well known for its annual invasion of jellyfish, which means that some tourists get more than they bargained for when they go for a dip in those warm Mediterranean waters. The authorities there are taking the whole thing so seriously that they've started to issue jellyfish forecasts and have set up a special police unit to monitor the situation. We sent Chris Bockman to Cannes to join a patrol which has been specially set up to try and take the sting out of summer.
Ever since the 1800s, when Northern Europeans first turned Cannes into a holiday resort, the town has become one of the most popular summer destinations in the south of France. Cannes is wedged between the sea and mountains, and confined in that narrow space can be found some of the richest people on earth. The resort is also synonymous with glamour, as it's home to the world-famous Cannes Film Festival. This red carpet is where the Hollywood elite pose for the cameras and is a big draw for tourists practicing their own star looks. Except this year, something has come along to the party uninvited, and this is it, the Pelagia noctilucae, otherwise known as a jellyfish. Be assured they're not life-threatening, but they can leave a nasty sting. There have always been jellyfish, but this year a combination of events has made the problem far worse. Warmer water, coastal currents, along with pollution along the coast, which has reduced the number of fish that eat jellyfish, are all to blame.
Between 800,000 and 1 million people come to Cannes each summer, so tourism here is big business. And that's why the town can't afford to have its visitors stung by jellyfish, or they'll consider going on holiday somewhere else.
The local authorities are taking the situation so seriously that a police unit is now on the water every day, patrolling the 15 kilometers of Cannes shoreline to see if jellyfish attacks are likely. If so, they can close down the beach. They spend most of their time warning bathers of the risks.
Faites attention quand même, hein, parce qu'on a le vent, il risque de les ramener là. D'accord?
It's difficult to keep track of the jellyfish. They go underwater at night and surface with the hot mornings.
Ce qui fait qu'il y a des méduses, c'est notamment les courants.
What brings jellyfish here are the currents and the winds. Today the wind is pushing jellyfish out to sea, but when the wind comes from the east or the southeast, it brings jellyfish to the shore.
Be careful, jellyfish!
Several bathers told me they had been stung.
Hello, have you seen any jellyfish today?
Not any. Not at all. Not today.
Are you aware of the problem?
Yes. I've been hurt sometime, and well, it's really bad.
What do you do when you get stung?
Nothing special. I try to go out of the water as soon as possible, and then I wash myself, and that's it.
Been swimming outside, and we've been touching some of the children has been touching them.
Have your children been hurt by jellyfish?
Just slightly on the fingers.
Vous avez rien mis dessus, vous avez pas rincé à l'eau douce.
Back on the beach, the police spend a lot of time dealing with sting victims.
Ce qu'on fait lorsqu'on est piqué, s'il y a un poste de secours à proximité, donc venir au poste de secours.
If you're stung, come immediately to one of our security points because we have creams to ease the pain. If we're not available, you need to know all jellyfish stings can be neutralised with heat. So put something hot on the burn like warm sand, but don't rub it in or the sting will spread. Let the sand settle and then remove it slowly with a bit of cardboard so the jellyfish tentacles fall away.
Police patrols alone can't keep the jellyfish at bay. Anti-jellyfish floating barriers with nets have been installed along Cannes' 3 main beaches, providing safe zones for swimmers. There is a cost involved, but it provides peace of mind.
It costs Cannes €35,000 each year to install the 3 barriers. It's not a huge amount and represents good value and protects bathers from jellyfish throughout the summer. And even if there are no jellyfish, the barrier reassures parents.
The jellyfish outbreak has become so serious that scientists are trying to track them in real time, and a new website is being set up, jellywatch.fr, that tourists can browse so that they know the situation.
Celle qui nous intéresse, la Pelagia noctiluca, c'est la méduse mauve qui...
The one we're interested in is the Pelagia nocticula, a mauve jellyfish whose sting is unsightly and uncomfortable for swimmers. This jellyfish goes down deep under the sea during the day and resurfaces at night. We measure its growth and reproduction rates, as well as wind and current movements. If we take all this data into account, we can assess the probability of whether jellyfish will be found near the coast.
65% of the tourists in Cannes come from outside France, and the tourism office says they spend just under €100 a day, so all the measures put in place make business sense.
Cannes is a luxury city, therefore, we need anyway to give the best services possible to all these people, and therefore, if we can avoid that some jellyfish, which are rare again, are there, we have to protect them about that.
The issue is not going away, and long-term solutions are needed because overfishing and global warming means jellyfish swarms over the summer are likely to be a perennial problem for some time to come along the Mediterranean.
Chris Bockman on Jellyfish Patrol in Cannes. And did you know the world's biggest ever recorded jellyfish was 7 feet across? Now there's something to put you off your breaststroke. Happily though, it wasn't spotted off the coast of France. Time now for a look at what else is making news in the world of travel this week.
Beaches along the coast of Western Australia have been closed after the 5th fatal shark attack in less than a year. The area's fisheries minister is now calling for the animal's status as a protected species to be reviewed. He's announced they'll spend more than $14 million on reducing the risk of more attacks in the future. Marine experts say the risk to swimmers is greater during dawn, dusk and on overcast days, so to avoid the water during those times. Police in Britain are warning tourists that gangs of pickpockets are planning to travel to London from across South America and Eastern Europe for the Olympic Games. They're cracking down on suspected gangs who've set up base in the capital. If you're in town for the Games, police advice is to be discreet with your belongings, avoid texting and walking at the same time, and don't use your mobile phone immediately after leaving a train or tube station. People who spot animals being mistreated while on holiday are being asked to report it. The UK-based Society for the Protection of Animals Abroad found that 1 in 5 British tourists has witnessed animal abuse, but 3/4 of those never report what they see. They suggest you should pick animals that appear healthy when booking treks and rides and look out for signs of malnutrition. And Sir Richard Branson's announced he'll take the first Virgin Galactic flight into space with his 2 children. They're expected to blast off by the end of next year. The aircraft will fly more than 95 kilometres up into space.
I wonder what the air miles are on a trip like that. And if you've signed up for a trip on board Virgin Galactic, do let us know at our usual email address, fasttrack@bbc.com, because we would love to see your holiday snaps once you get back. And talking of emailing, that's what many of you have been doing about some of the stories we've featured recently on the programme. In particular, Rajan's report from Barcelona, where a new marina is being built for luxury yachts, had many of you writing in.
For the global super rich, it seems, calm waters prevail. And right now, they're opening up their horizons and looking for a new place for their mega yachts to hang out in. And they've found it. It's here.
After seeing that report, Pascal Grandperrin from Montpellier in France got in touch to say,
I think having those yachts around is a good idea for the economy. The owners and their friends will visit local shops, bars and casinos, and that's got to be good for the local economy. I think that some of the so-called green lobby who are against these developments are manipulated by the left. You don't see many yachts in North Korea or Cuba.
Heading over the Atlantic now, and S. Carter from Ontario got in touch after seeing our film on the high cost of flights between some Caribbean islands. She said that was a familiar problem in some parts of Canada too.
It is cheaper for me to fly to the UK for a holiday than to other locations here in Canada, like Newfoundland, Quebec or Vancouver. As a proud Canadian, I'd like to show my British husband parts of my country, but we end up returning to the UK instead for holidays. Lack of competition in short-haul flights and domination by one major airline have decimated the market.
And finally, a word of warning from Abby Gassman in Switzerland after our recent report on falling call charges in EU countries.
Great news, but beware, they do not apply to Switzerland. Please check first before using your mobiles in Switzerland to avoid nasty surprises. Sigh, no, Switzerland is not an EU member.
Thanks, Abby. Wise words and a useful warning. And do please keep those emails coming to our usual address. And don't forget, you can now tweet us at BBC Fast Track. Well, that's it for now, but stay with us because coming up after the break, Simon explains what to do if your airline cancels your flight and sends a bus instead of a plane. The best way to get around Europe if you want to go only by train. And we head to Tasmania for a spot of outdoor adventure.
Hello and welcome to the Fast Track Travel Clinic with me, Simon Calder, and let's start with a flight to nowhere, as experienced by Jerome Duga from Jos in central Nigeria, who was trying to get from Lagos to Cotonou in Benin. After a 5-hour delay on the ground, the captain announced the plane was going nowhere and the flight was cancelled.
Air Nigeria arranged a bus, but said we would get no refund if we took it, even though the usual bus fare is only 15% of the airfare. I declined the offer and asked for a refund on my ticket. I still have not heard from the airline. How long does a refund usually take?
Jerome, an airline ticket is simply a promise to get you from A to B, but not necessarily on a plane, by train, boat or bus if necessary. Had you accepted the bus ride, you'd have had no claim against the airline, but you chose to decline the offer and asked instead for a refund, which Air Nigeria is obliged to provide, but no time limit is stipulated. From similar incidents in the past, your chances of a refund are highest if you paid with a credit card and can claim back from the financial institution that provided it. Next, Penelope Coley has the good fortune to live in Thailand's northern city, Chiang Mai, and she's coming to Europe to indulge her travel passion.
My favourite form of travel is railways, preferably steam. I want to take a train from Calabria in Italy to Florence for a week, then catch a train to Salzburg for another week, then take the Orient Express to London to meet relatives, and finally fly back to Chiang Mai.
Penelope, I can't promise too much steam haulage on your trans-European adventure, but it will be an electrifying journey from the far south of Italy, across the Alps into Austria, and then on a piece of railway history through Switzerland and France to your family in Britain, which is the best place to find a specialist rail agent who can organise it all for you. Calabria to Florence is a full-day journey, and the same applies for the stretch to Salzburg, with superb alpine scenery promised throughout. The closest the Venice-Simplon Orient Express gets is Innsbruck, another great Austrian city that's a spectacular train ride away. From the Orient Express through Europe to the Americas, and Akanksha writes from the beautiful Atlantic outpost of Bermuda to say,
I'm an Indian national living in Bermuda. I want to travel to Ecuador as a tourist. The visa information is ambiguous, and hence I'm writing to you. Can I get a visa on arrival?
Akanksha, I've checked with the Ecuadorian embassy in your home country of India, and before you can explore the Pacific beaches and volcanic landscapes of mainland Ecuador and perhaps fly out to see the amazing wildlife of the Galapagos, you must go through the bureaucratic business of applying for a visa in advance, in your case probably through the embassy in Washington DC. Finally, Brian Elliott in Lisbon was watching our item on the new Brandenburg Airport in Berlin, whose planned opening triggered the announcement of all kinds of new routes, including one from the Portuguese capital.
I have a flight booked with TAP on their new service from Lisbon to Brandenburg. The new airport failed to open. What are my rights?
Brian, the opening of Berlin-Brandenburg was delayed by 9 months due to concerns over fire safety. Some airlines decided to go ahead with new routes, temporarily using the existing Berlin airports of Tegel and Schönefeld, while others, including TAP Portugal, postponed their plans. TAP is rebooking passengers like you on connecting flights from its Star Alliance partners. And because the change was made with more than 2 weeks' notice, you are not due any compensation. Whatever your travel quandary, email fasttrack@bbc.com and I'll do my best to find you an answer. For now, from me, Simon Calder, goodbye and see you next time.
Thanks, Simon. Now to finish off today, Tasmania is often called one of Australia's hidden gems. It's found 240 kilometres off the southeast corner of the mainland and has over 2,000 kilometres of walking trails and 18 national parks. Its geographical isolation has also helped keep alive many plants, animals and birds that are rare or even extinct elsewhere. So how does this tiny island balance the impact of travellers with its delicate environment? We sent Fast Track reporter Brandy Yanchik to find out.
I'm in Tasmania, Australia's island state, in the Cradle Mountain Lake St. Clair National Park. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We're in the northern part of Tasmania, and this area here is famous for the furry critters you can find all around you, like wallabies, wombats, and if you're lucky, Tasmanian devils. The chance of seeing a Tasmanian devil in the wild, though, is very slim. The famous animal from this region is in danger of extinction. In the last 15 years, Tasmania has lost more than 80% of its Tasmanian devils due to devil facial tumor disease. Nearby in the remote Tarkine rainforest is one of the only places left in Tasmania where the cancer has not yet spread, and they still live in the wild. Tourists here can get a chance to be part of a research study called the Tarkine Devil Project that is tracking populations of devils in the region. Local guides have set up 40 motion sensing cameras along Tarkine trails. They change the camera's batteries and memory cards when they go out with the tours. Tourists then get a chance to see the collected data, which is being sent to the University of Tasmania. Besides the unique animals in Tasmania, the remote wilderness trails are what attracts bushwalkers here from all around the world. You can be on a trail for days and not see anyone else.
There's walks ranging from 15 minutes to 5 to 7 days on the overland track. Different grades of walks, some very hard and very steep walks that require navigational skills to 15-minute walks at wheelchair access.
The number of bushwalkers using the trails is heavily monitored by the park staff to prevent damage to the rainforest. They manage how many people are allowed in the park at one time to try to reduce the impacts from tourists on the delicate ecosystems.
I think my favourite thing about this area is it's relatively untouched. What you're seeing now is pretty much how it was 100 years ago, and that's a special part about it.
Why is that so special?
I think because with the impacts now of man and pollution and changes in climate, it's very rare to find an ecosystem like what we have at Cradle Mountain that is relatively untouched.
One thing about Tasmania for tourists and bushwalkers is that you have to be prepared for the weather to change at any moment. It can be hot, then cold, dry, and then very wet.
Because it's rainforest, it has its own microclimate. Our rainfall here is very high. We measure our rainfall in metres per year as opposed to millimetres.
Imagine starting an adventure company here in a place where the impacts on the environment are heavily monitored. That's what Anthony O'Hearn and his business partner Tim did. They own and operate the first and only canyoning company in Tasmania.
Canyoning is where you put on a bunch of safety gear, a wetsuit and a helmet and a life jacket, hop in a river at point A, travel to point B and get out and do whatever you need to do between point A and point B to get down the river safely. It took us about 2 years to get this business off the ground, so we had to jump through all sorts of hoops to make sure it had no impact on the environment or very low impact on the environment and was safe.
As tourists discover and continue to travel to Tasmania's untouched wilderness, environmentalists and park staff will continue to fight to make sure a balance is struck so that this land will keep its pristine nature, but also still be a place that travelers can visit.
Brandy Yanchik getting wet and wild in Tasmania. And that's it for this week. We hope you've enjoyed our travels, and there'll be more of the same next week when we'll be finding out why some tourists have been asked to show more